Hello, everybody. This is Mallory Flowers on behalf of Jennifer Schaus and Associates, and we are coming to you live from Washington, D.C. And welcome to our Webinar Wednesday series. Our webinars are held every Wednesday in 2018 at 12 p.m. and 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and our speakers range from accountants to attorneys and other industry professionals. The full schedule for the rest of the year is on our website underneath the webinar tab. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, and our speaker's contact info is posted on the last slide, so if you have any questions, please contact the speaker directly. The recordings are on our website underneath the Archives webinar tab, as well as on our YouTube channel. And this is just a quick blurb about us. Jennifer Schaus and Associates is based in downtown Washington, D.C., and help both product and service companies with federal contracting. Our clients are domestic and foreign, defense contractors, and civilian. Our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles, including the GSA schedule. We can also help you with proposal writing and post-award contract administration. More information about our services and upcoming events can be found on our website. Also, please note we have just scheduled our signature networking event at the John F. Kennedy Center, which brings together 200 federal contractors and government agencies. Sponsorships are available. Tickets are required in advance, and you can use the link below or sign up on our website underneath the events section. We hope to see you there. We're going to go ahead and dig into today's presentation, which is PCards, What You Need to Know. And Mary Beth Bosco is our speaker today. You can learn more about her information on this slide. Thank you, Mary Beth, for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mallory. My name is Mary Beth Bosco. I am a partner at Holland & Knight in Washington, D.C. Our firm has many different services, one of which is government contracts. And like Mallory's group, we represent international, domestic, large, small businesses in pretty much every aspect of government contracts. So can we have the next slide, Mallory? So this is the overview of what we'll be talking about today. First, what is the Government Purchase Card Program? Second, what can it be used for? Then we'll talk about what it can't be used for, what are the limitations, who has the liability, and then finally, how does it work in practice? So could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, what is the Government Purchase Card? As I'll note in a couple of minutes, it's actually one of 4 type of credit cards that the government uses. It is a government credit card. It is probably the largest credit card program in the world. It is widely used throughout the government. As you can see from the slides, there are nearly 300 agencies that use it. It's about $19 million per year is put on the government purchase cards. There are approximately 20 million transactions, and there are 3 million cards out there. It is managed by the General Services Administration, and the Office of Management and Budget also puts out guidelines for using the program. Each agency then has its own specific procedures. As you can tell from the slide, this is a huge money saver for the United States government. It's estimated to save approximately $1.3 billion per year for the government. The reasons for that are that you don't need to worry about a contract. If you're an authorized user of the card, you can buy purchases immediately. If you need something, let's say from your local Walmart, you can go to your local Walmart that day and buy things if you are the federal government. So its use is far and wide. It can buy office supplies. You can imagine that FEMA now, let's say in North Carolina, may run into some unexpected emergencies and may be using cards. The Veterans Administration uses the Government Purchase Card Program to buy medicines and surgical supplies, equipment for its hospitals on a very quick basis. It is Another way that the government saves money using the purchase card program is that many agencies do an end of the year spend analysis like we might get on our credit cards, where it tells us where we've spent our money over the year. And from that spend analysis, the agencies can see what is being bought and where it's coming from, and they can therefore use that information to try and negotiate some additional discounts. Next slide, please. So like I said, there are actually 4 cards, and this is called the GSA Smart Pay 3 Master Contract. So there are 4 cards: the government purchase card, the travel card, which is used for airfares, hotels, etc., the fleet cards, which are used for gasoline purchases, fuel purchases, small purchases of equipment for cars, etc. And then there's something called the integrated card, and that is all 3 cards combined. The GPC program is considered part of FAR Part 13's Simplified Acquisition Program. And it has been around since 1989 in this sort of government-wide form. Prior to that time, some agencies had the card, others didn't. Next slide, please. So what can it be used for? There's really very few limitations. It can be used for products, for services, or even for construction. In order to use the card, the employee of the government does not need to be a contracting officer, but they must have delegated authority under FAR 1.603 from their agency. As I said, each agency sets its own particular processes and procedures for use of the card, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those look like later on in the program. In addition to that sort of broad authority, the limits are, there is a price limit for most agencies. It can be used to make purchases under the micro purchase limit, which right now is $3,500. If the contract authorizes it, it can be used to actually place a task order or a purchase order. So for example, the Defense Logistics Agency, who purchases a lot of equipment and other items for the Defense Department, they have what they call sort of these master ordering agreements with various manufacturers and distributors. And they can use the DLA personnel can place orders under the master agreement using the government purchase card. It can also be used to pay the contractor for services if the contractor will accept use of the card. So in addition to being a good thing from the government standpoint, it's also a good tool for contractors because they may be able to get payment more quickly by accepting payment from the government's credit card. Next slide. The Department of Defense has its own rules that expand the use of the card for overseas work. So if you're dealing with a DoD agency, the government purchase card can be used to make a purchase that is over that 3,500 micro purchase level, so long as it does not exceed $25,000 and that the purchase is made outside the U.S., is for a commercial item, and is not used to pay workers that were recruited in the United States. In addition, if a contracting officer that's supporting a contingency operation can use the card even for items up to $150,000, if all of those requirements we just went over are met, and if the item is immediately available and there is one payment and one delivery. So again, you can imagine a situation maybe in Afghanistan where you might quickly need a generator. This is the perfect situation for the DoD to be able to use the government purchase card. Next slide, please. So there are some limitations, obviously, in addition to the dollar thresholds that we just spoke about. The card can only be used for government purposes, never for personal business. Only the authorized card holder can use it. So one government employee can't say to another one, here, take my card, and use it to purchase, use it to place an order, say, on the DLA schedules or to buy some office supplies. Only an authorized card holder can use it. If it's an authorized user, the government is liable for payment, even if the authorized user wasn't themselves supposed to be authorized to make the particular purchase. If it is an unauthorized person using the card, the contractor may be stuck. So, a tip for contractors who are using the purchase card to receive payment is to ask for the government personnel's authorization to make sure they are somebody who can use the use the purchase card. Next slide is what I meant. There are a couple of other limitations. You can't use it for the long-term rental or lease of lands or buildings. You can't use it for travel expenses because there's a travel card for that, but it can be used for things like conference rooms or meeting rooms or even local transportation services such as Metro cards or buying tokens or bus passes. It also cannot be used for cash advances unless the user gets special authorization. Next slide, please. So how does this program work in practice? Like we said, it is GSA that administers the program and OMB that sets the guidelines. There are currently 3 banks that issue government purchase cards: Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, and US Bank. GSA plans to add 2 more banks in 2018. And like you and me, if there's a stolen card and somebody's making unauthorized purchases, the bank will limit the government's liability for purchases made to just at $50. So the government gets the same protections for fraudulent use of cards that you and I would get. Next slide, please. DoD and the VA are by far the largest users in the government of the government purchase card. It can be used at virtually any store. It can be I've listed on this slide who are the largest recipients of use of the government purchase card. They're Walmart, as you can expect, Home Depot, Lowe's, Office Depot, Best Buy. So with this program and the scope of it, the millions of card users, you can imagine that it is, potentially a breeding ground for lots of fraud and misuse, and that some contractors are not particularly comfortable with using the card for that reason. But in fact, because there have been OMB has issued guidelines and there are some protections in place, it is a pretty safe bet to use the card. In fact, in 2017, a GAO study found that in almost 80% of the cases, the government agency or person using the card followed all the documentation procedures, and there was no fraud or unauthorized use involved. So contractors can be confident in accepting the card. The procedures that the government puts in place are one person or one office within the organization should be designated as the management office for use of the government purchase card within that agency. Employees within the management agency, employees who will be authorized to use the card, and the approving officials must all be trained. Each agency is supposed to maintain a list of who the card holders are and who the approving officials are, which again is another way to ward against unauthorized use and also to be able to quickly identify lost or stolen cards. There is to be an annual review or audit by each agency, and there have to be written procedures for timely submission by the card holder of their statements, procedures for folks to follow to maintain security of their cards, also handling disputes if a charge card statement shows up and there's something on the card that you didn't purchase, or if you make a refund, and then also for card renewals. The personnel involved in the program from the government standpoint is that the agency will delegate authority to the card holders. The card holders make the purchase and they actually receive the credit card statements like we do. The individual card holder is then required to review the statement each month, verify the payment, make sure that nothing untoward has shown up, and then sends everything over to the agency's approving official or officials for their review. And then once that happens, the statement is sent to the billing officials for payment, and the card company is then reimbursed. So overall, this is I'd say a successful government program for smaller purchases, for the government to be able to get things that it needs quickly, and for contractors also to realize payment quickly and relatively securely. Although these days we seem to hear about, hacking more and more, but this program is pretty well monitored at the agency level, and as I said, is not as risky as one would otherwise think with the number of cards that are out there and the millions and millions of purchases that the cards are used for each year. And with that, Mallory, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth. And that was a lot of great information. And thank you for everybody who joined us today. If you have any more questions for Mary Beth, you can reach out to her with the information you see on your screen. Next week at 12, you're covering Accelerate Your Growth by Targeting Your Pricing. And at 12:30, we are covering the brief disclosures, What Do I Really Get? Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a good day.